This boy gets a new stepsister, and he ends up falling in love. The anime begins with two young people reflecting on how step-siblings are essentially just two strangers who have suddenly become siblings, having not spent much time together. The guy named Yuta Asamura thinks about how movies and books often portray step-siblings becoming romantic partners, citing the excuse of having no blood relation, despite the fact that these fictional worlds are very different from reality. Meanwhile, the girl named Saki Ayase reflects that people often say all siblings start off as strangers, but in the case of step-siblings, this doesn't change. They remain strangers until the end then. They pass each other on the street without even noticing, as they are just two strangers. They go their separate ways, and Saki meets up with her mother while Yuta arrives at his workplace, where he greets his colleague, Shiori Yomiuri. Later, Saki and her mother, Ekiko, meet a man at a restaurant, and the next day, we discover he is Yuta's father, Taichi Asamura. Taichi tells his son that he plans to remarry. Taichi explains that the woman works at a bar, and that he met her when he went there with his boss. He also mentions that he has arranged a meeting for that night so Yuta can meet her, expecting his presence after work. Yuta is not bothered by his father's new marriage, saying that what matters is his father's happiness. After all, nothing will change in his life. However, Taichi warns that, contrary to what Yuta thought, his life will change because he will get a new younger sister, the daughter of his father's new wife. Before the meeting, Yuta sees a photo of his new sister, a small child, but when he arrives at the bar where they arranged to meet, Yuta introduces himself and meets Akiko, his father's new wife, and her daughter, Saki, who is practically his age. The guy is surprised, and Taichi explains that he celebrates his birthday a week before hers, making him the older brother, even though they are both in their second year of high school. Akiko realizes the misunderstanding and explains to Yuta that the photo he saw of Saki was from when she was a child. After she grew up, she never allowed anyone to take pictures of her again. The girl justifies this by saying she is not photogenic at all. Later, in the bar's bathroom, Saki tells Yuta she was relieved to see that he wasn't scary since they would be living together from now on. Yuta says that scary people can often look gentle. The girl then responds that Taichi mentioned Yuta is a hardworking guy saving up for college and getting excellent grades in school. Yuta retorts that criminals can also be very smart, which makes the girl burst into laughter. Later, they leave the bar together, and Saki says she wants to tell Yuta something before their parents come out, as it is something she can only tell him. Yuta jokes that he must be an amazing person to have earned her trust so quickly. Saki comments that his humor and way of speaking make her think he is an easy person to get along with, and precisely because of that, he should be able to understand what she wants to say. Then, Saki says she has no expectations of Yuta and doesn't want him to have any expectations of her either. The girl asks if he understands what she means, and he confirms saying he is relieved, which makes her feel the same way.
お母さんたちが出てくる前に
親に言えないこと？すごいな、俺。
そのユーモア、話し方、どれにも強い熱を感じない。私の言葉も正確に理解してくれると思って。この意味、あなたなら正確に理解できるよね。
安心した。安心したよ。今初めてね。
A few days later, Taichi thoroughly cleans his house to receive his wife and Saki, worried about making a good impression on them. Yuta finds his father's behavior strange, who explains that when you reach his age, this kind of thing becomes critical. At that moment, the two arrive bringing several bags full of things as a way for Akiko to show gratitude for being welcomed. Yuta finds the woman's exaggeration strange, just as he found his father's sudden obsession with cleaning odd. Then Saki explains that her mother doesn't know how to say no and ended up buying everything that was recommended to her, making Akiko embarrassed by her daughter's honesty. As soon as they enter the house, Akiko notices the cleanliness. Yuta starts to say that he and his father had been cleaning the house non-stop for the past few days, but Akiko comments that Taichi had mentioned how much they enjoy cleaning. So Yuta decides not to spoil the image his father wants to create and says that the Asamura family motto is to eliminate every speck of dust. Saki finds the family motto a bit exaggerated, given Taichi's apparent obsession with cleanliness. He welcomes them both and says he hopes the four of them can have a happy life under the same roof. With the exaggeration of trying to make a good impression, Saki and Akiko laugh at the situation and say it will be a pleasure to live there. Then, Yuta shows Saki her room and explains that he and his father already set up the curtains, the bed, and a desk, but she can change and arrange everything as she prefers. The girl looks around her new room and comments on how spacious it is. Yuta says it's a normal size, and Saki explains that she and her mother lived in an old studio apartment, so she never had her own room. The guy asks if the two of them slept together, and Saki tells him that her mother works at night, having a completely different routine, and for that reason, she always slept alone. Then Yuta apologizes, imagining that her previous life must have been more comfortable than now, having to live with two men in the same house. Saki says she doesn't mind and asks why he is being so formal with her since they are the same age. The girl explains that she doesn't mind the way he talks, but she imagines it must be normal for him to be more casual with friends and classmates, and for that reason, he doesn't need to speak so formally just to please her, if that's the reason for his formality. Yuta explains that his intention is not exactly to please her. To clear any doubts, he asks Saki if she prefers that he doesn't speak formally with her. The girl decides to be honest and says she would feel more at ease if he used a more relaxed tone when talking to her. After all, he doesn't owe her any respect or anything like that. Immediately, Yuta drops the formality, making Saki a bit taken aback by the speed of the change. He explains that it will be difficult for them to talk as if they were old friends, but since she is being honest and making her preferences clear, it makes things much easier for him. Saki laughs and comments that she's happy they can resolve their differences. She shares that her friends at school don't take her way of dealing with things seriously because they laugh and say it seems like she wants to make a contract with them. Saki continues, saying that because of this, she cut ties with everyone except for one person, as she didn't care about the rest since they didn't understand what they were thinking, and it seemed like a waste of time trying to please boys who didn't even try to communicate. Yuta offers to help Saki organize her things, and she accepts his help. Thus, while Akiko and Saki get to know the house better and settle in, Yuta helps unpack the moving boxes, even accidentally finding a piece of the girl's intimate clothing. The guy feels embarrassed by the situation, and Saki and her parents laugh at him.
優しいんだ。
Later, Yuta asks if Saki goes to Suizai High School. She confirms and asks if he finds it strange that a girl attends a preparatory school. He denies it and explains that he's asking because he also studies there. Then Yuta says that if possible, he would like them to pretend to be strangers at school, apologizing for his request. Saki responds that she doesn't mind since it doesn't matter to her, and maybe it's better for him that way. Yuta starts to reply when his phone rings, interrupting the conversation. Saki says he can feel free to leave or take the call in front of her if he prefers. He thanks her and leaves the room to answer the call. The next day, during his shift, his co-worker, Yomiuri, says he smells like a girl and asks if he has a girlfriend. Yuta is surprised to smell like Saki, and Yomiuri continues teasing, wondering how many hours he spent next to the girl to end up smelling like that. He doesn't like the joke and says he's leaving, making Yomiuri apologize, as she had already told her that he got a sister, and so she assumed the girl had already moved in. Then Yomiuri asks if his sister is pretty, and when Yuta confirms, she jokes that he's lucky to be living with a beautiful girl. He immediately says that nothing will happen between them and that she should behave better. Yomiuri apologizes for her jokes and explains that she's like that because she always attended girls' schools, which makes Yuta comment that she's ruining the reputation of girls' schools. Then he says he's worried and asks Yomiuri what kind of behavior is expected between siblings. His coworker responds that, in his case, he just needs to act naturally. After work, Yuta walks home, where he immediately takes off his shoes as usual and sees Saki on the couch. He announces that he's home as a greeting, and the girl doesn't know how to respond. Saki apologizes for her reaction and explains that no one ever said anything to her when they came home, as her mother always had a routine with different hours than hers. At that moment, the girl notices that Yuta is serious and says it's okay, since it's not like he treated her badly or anything like that. Saki continues, saying that her mother would arrive from work when she was at school and leave again for work when she returned from school, and because of this routine, they never met. Yuta comments that they seemed very close to each other. Saki responds that they are still mother and daughter and says that earlier they managed to go shopping together after a long time, and because of that, her day was very fun. Yuta ends the conversation by asking if the bath was ready and which of them would bathe first. He ends up going first, and the girl observes the bath being prepared. After a while, when he finishes his bath, Saki is already in her room with the door closed. He just knocks on the door to let her know that everything is ready for her to take a bath, wishes her goodnight, and goes to his room, closing the door after her bath. Before going to bed, she notices the lighting in the house, observing how everything was different from what she was used to. On a Sunday morning in mid-July, Yuta wakes up with the usual laziness that this day of the week brings. Eventually, he reluctantly goes downstairs and finds Saki washing the dishes. After exchanging polite morning greetings, she thanks Yuta for preparing the bath, mentioning that the water was at the perfect temperature. However, she says that from now on it won't be necessary anymore because it wastes water. Visibly downcast, the girl announces that she'll go ahead, leaving Yuta standing there unable to react. Later at school, Yuta observes his stepsister in the courtyard. Maru approaches and mentions that he usually doesn't meddle in other people's love lives, but he advises his friend to give up trying anything with her. Yuta hadn't been thinking about it, especially since he never imagined that a pretty girl like Saki would ever want to go out with him. Maru points out that dating her might look bad, particularly because he's heard some unpleasant rumors about Saki selling herself, if you know what he means. According to him, Saki is one of those well-groomed, egocentric blondes who keep people at a distance, someone who doesn't fit into any group. Some people have even seen her in the motel district. One day, a guy from the baseball team confessed his feelings to her, and Saki responded that she's as bad as people say and has no desire to date anyone. Yuta wonders if she just meant that about the guy who approached her, but his friend has heard similar stories from other clubs where the protagonist's sister rejected other boys in the same way. After saying this, Maru tries to change the subject, asking his friend what it's like to have a sister living in the same house. However, he soon realizes he needs to change and get back to class, so they end the conversation and go their separate ways. Later, during tennis class, Maya announces that she will use her secret weapon, the Grand Heavenly Serve, but she ends up double faulting again. Despite everything, her opponent takes it in stride, and the two start interacting amiably. Nearby, Yuta watches his stepsister out of the corner of his eye, lost in her own world with her headphones on. He decides to strike up a conversation expressing his concern about seeing someone he knows skipping class. She asks if he's going to start giving her a big brother lecture, but Yuta knows he's in no position to moralize. He just says he was surprised to learn that Saki chose tennis as her sport. She explains that Maya wanted them to choose the same sport, but that's not the only reason. Yuta asks if the redhead is one of Saki's friends, and she responds affirmatively, though it seems Maya is more of everyone's friend than hers. Specifically taking advantage of the topic, Saki wants to know why Yuta chose tennis, but he's embarrassed to say. She reassures him, saying her reason is also a bit ridiculous. So he admits that he chose it because there are no team matches. He doesn't like relying on others or having others rely on him. Saki says they're similar in that regard because she didn't want to participate in a team sport to avoid getting close to others. Yuta is surprised considering that people like her are usually the center of attention, but she prefers things as they are, with everyone in one corner and her in another enjoying peace and quiet. With that said, Yuta asks if she wants peace to keep her headphones on as usual. When Yuta gets home, Akiko tells him she's made dinner for him. He regrets that she went to all that trouble before going to work, as dealing with customers must be tough. She agrees that she deals with a lot of people, but as a bartender it's more relaxed, so she doesn't mind cooking occasionally. Before leaving, she asks Yuta to take care of Saki for her. In the late afternoon, Yuta is studying in his room when he hears a knock on the door. He asks the person to come in, and Saki opens the door announcing her arrival. Not understanding why she made this announcement, he welcomes her as she turns on the light, so he won't study in the dark. She then asks if Yuta knows of any easy jobs that pay well because she needs money without committing too many hours, something around 10,000 yen per hour. Yuta doesn't know of any such jobs, so she mentions that she read somewhere that if you want money, you have to sell yourself. Trying not to sound disrespectful, Yuta comments that Saki should value her body more, but she replies that she already does, which is why she believes she can make a lot of money. Yuta asks if she would say that in front of her mother, and she calmly says yes because her mother would be happy to hear that her daughter has finally matured. With that, she asks Yuta if his father wasn't proud when he started doing that, and he begins to get confused, as it seems they're talking about different things. Moving away from that topic, Saki reminds him that he mentioned a job yesterday.
ただいま。
おかえり。
さ。
そこ不思議がるところ。
1、2時間の拘束でお金は欲しいけど、どうかなって書いてあったし。
こういうこと言うの、マナー違反かもしれないけど、の体を大切にした方がいいと思うんだ。
お父さん喜ばなかった？
喜んだら大問題でしょ。
と、昨日言ってたじゃん。
え？
Shortly after, the two eat something together, and Saki explains that many people are curious about why she dresses the way she does. In her opinion, her clothes are like equipped mode gear that allows her to live in society. Not fully understanding, Yuta jokingly asks if her outfit has any defense bonuses, but Saki believes there's some connection to that because after all, we all fight battles all the time, even if they're not visible to the eye. Changing the subject, she asks if his mother doesn't look beautiful when she goes to work, and the boy admits she does. Saki mentions that his mother only finished high school and thinks this might bother his brother since Akiko is a beautiful woman without a college degree who works at night. People often say she is dumb or that she takes advantage of her looks. After all, if you're smart but not beautiful, they say you're a snob who pretends to be an intellectual. Now, if you're beautiful but not very smart, they say you're trying to con someone. When a beautiful woman depends on a man, she's a parasite. But if she works hard to have things on her own, she's just a spinster who couldn't get a man to support her. That's why Saki dresses the way she does, because she needs to appear perfect to stand out before she has the strength to be perfect at school and work. Yuta doesn't mind any of this but thinks it must be a bit tiring to act like that. However, the girl says it's worth it because proving others wrong is priceless. Lost in his thoughts, the boy wonders who these people Saki is referring to might be, as his mind takes him to an old memory where he shared a meal with an adult woman when he was still small. Interrupting the memory, Saki asks if the boy isn't like her, but he replies that he's not that strong. He mentions that he doesn't like it when people have expectations of him or vice versa. If he wants to get rid of that, she advises Yuta to be strong enough to live alone. He asks if that's why Saki wants a job so badly, to live independently and not rely on others, and she admits that's the case. After finishing their meal, the boy says he'll look for a job for his sister because his supervisor might know something. Then he says he'd love it if his sister made miso soup for him every day, and she asks if that's a love confession. However, he just meant that it's been a long time since he had miso soup that wasn't instant, and it's hard to ask Akiko because she works so much. With that, Saki agrees to cook for him while Yuta promises to find a job that will make the girl independent. The next day, he is surprised to see Saki making breakfast too, even though the deal was just miso soup for dinner. However, Saki has a policy of giving more than she receives. Next to the young man, Taichi gets emotional seeing the girl preparing breakfast and leaves after eating. As Yuta is slow to eat, Saki asks if he liked it. The thing is, the boy is used to eating fried eggs with soy sauce but makes it clear it's her fault because she didn't know. So they agree to talk about his food preferences whenever possible. At work, while Yuta reads a book on how to make money, Shiori comments that he's really focused on changing his life. He replies that's somewhat true because he wants to live alone after graduation, as he now has a sister his age and it will be difficult to live together. Shiori understands that her friend wants to live alone but doesn't believe it's because of his sister. According to her, having a sister the same age as you is like an investment. Finally, she says it's okay to depend on others if Yuta can't live alone. After all, it's good to have money, but it's not a sin not to have it. Besides, even the presidents of the richest companies need other people. Of course, a pretty university student like Shiori has 1 or 2 sugar daddies. Yuta is shocked by this statement, but the girl was just joking with him. Anyway, she really believes Yuta should think about these things calmly and not be ashamed of depending on family for now. At night, the boy returns to dinner with his sister and tells her what Shiori said. Saki comments that this Shiori must be like one of those older sisters who are beautiful, friendly, and smart, and what she said is true. However, she makes it clear she doesn't intend to change her mind about being independent. Yuta asks if she couldn't depend on him and their father. And the girl knows they are trustworthy but believes everything would be easier if Yuta were a bad person. Without explaining what she meant, she gets up after finishing eating and says goodbye. Shortly after, as he leaves the bath, the boy sees something left for him in the hallway. When dawn breaks, he sees his sister on her way to school and approaches but keeps a certain distance. Distracted, Saki listens to her music with headphones on. Crossing the street inattentively, she doesn't notice a speeding car coming and Yuta tries to help. Later during tennis class, Maya is drawing everyone's attention with her extroverted behavior as usual, and Saki is her partner in the game. Earlier, Yuta had to play the big brother role because his sister's recklessness almost led to her death. With her broken headphones on the ground, she hugs her backpack to feel any support. Even if it's not real, then she apologizes. After the match, Saki looks directly at her brother but walks away from him. When school ends, he grabs his things from his locker and sees Saki outside the school without an umbrella in the pouring rain. So he looks at the umbrella in his hand. When he gets home, the guy is completely drenched because he had lent the umbrella to his sister. On Thursday, June 11th, Yuta recalls the events of the previous night. Maya, after meeting Saki, explained to Yuta that she wanted to see his new house and apologized for not informing him earlier. Since she didn't have his phone number, she also told Maya that they were now siblings. Although Yuta clarifies that he isn't bothered by this, Saki explains that Maya saw them talking at the tennis club, and when Yuta gave her an umbrella, he apologizes for not being more careful, as they were supposed to keep their sibling relationship a secret. Saki doesn't pay much attention to this and simply asks for Yuta's phone number. After reminiscing about the events, Yuta overhears a conversation between Saki and their mother from his room. They mention that Taichi will be home late, so they can all have breakfast together, something they haven't done in a while. Both Yuta and his father pray for Akiko's cooking, particularly enjoying the tortilla with broth she made, which includes dashi broth. Akiko tells Yuta that Saki knows the recipe and could make it for him sometime, though Saki says she isn't as good at it. Yuta mentions he also likes fried eggs, so Saki agrees to cook those for him when she's in the mood. Once Taichi leaves for work, Yuta asks Saki if he should add his clothes to the weekly laundry. She prefers to do the laundry herself, explaining that there are many delicate fabrics. Yuta insists on helping, but both Akiko and Saki point out that he doesn't know how to use the laundry net for delicate items. Realizing his inexperience, Yuta agrees to leave the task to them. Later, Akiko mentions she will be washing Taichi's underwear and asks Yuta if she can wash his as well. Yuta hesitates for a moment, finding it a personal matter. Soon after, Yuta prepares to leave with his umbrella. Before he goes, Saki asks him to wait for her, as she wants to go with him. On the way, she apologizes, suggesting he might prefer feminine underwear and implying he might not know how to wash clothes, having always rejected traditional gender roles. Yuta asks Saki to calm down and makes it clear that he doesn't wear makeup or do anything like that. Saki comments that his eyebrows are perfect and envies him when she learns they are natural. Changing the subject, she asks if he finds it hard that there are only 2 categories to define gender, and he agrees. Saki admits that she hadn't considered it much before, but Yuta tells her not to worry as it doesn't bother him. He also remarks that sometimes people act on impulse due to societal conditioning, believing people say and do things instinctively. Saki responds that prejudices lead to discrimination, and Yuta agrees, emphasizing the importance of thoughtful actions and learning from mistakes. After a moment of silence, Saki says she understands perfectly.
だから謝りたかった。
反射ってあるよね。とっさに言ってしまった得をする場面だってきっとあるんだよ。だから綾瀬さんはもうそれ以上は悩む必要はないんじゃないかな。綾瀬さんが俺はさできない人間だとは思わないよ。綾瀬さん、
浅村くんは。
They head to class, and later, when Yuta returns home, he is caught looking at Saki's underwear. Nervous, he quickly excuses himself, saying he has to go to work. When he returns, Saki brings up the incident, acknowledging that his reaction made her think he might steal something, and Yuta admits he feared she'd think that. Saki apologizes for her assumption and offers him a cup of hot chocolate, saying they are even. She teases him, asking if her underwear was tempting enough to catch his attention. Embarrassed, Yuta denies it but then admits the thought crossed his mind. Saki agrees, apologizing and ending the conversation by informing him she finished dinner and a bath. The story moves to Friday, June 12th. At the tennis court, Maya asks Yuta about Saki, mentioning she's been down since morning. Later, Yuta texts Saki to check if she's okay, and she replies affirmatively. That evening, they have dinner together, and Yuta mentions he still hasn't found a well-paying job. Although she isn't pressuring him, Saki feels like she'll end up cooking for him forever at this rate. Yuta reassures her, offering help if she needs it, and she silently accepts. After dinner, Saki takes a bath and freshens up in her room while Yuta reads a book in his bed. Unbeknownst to him, Saki quietly enters his room, turns off the lights, and removes some of her clothes. She slowly approaches his bed, and in the darkness, touches his cheek, asking if he's willing to pay for her body. Shocked, Yuta experiences flashbacks of their past since moving in with Taichi. From Saki's perspective, on Sunday, June 7th, she felt relieved when she met Yuta, realizing he wasn't a bad person. He even prepared a clean bath for her, which she appreciated. On Monday, June 8th, Yuta spoke to her at school, showing more sensibility than she expected. She was annoyed by the rumors he believed about her but couldn't blame him, knowing what others thought. For the first time, she felt understood by him. On Tuesday, June 9th, she left a note saying Yuta liked fried eggs with soy sauce and started cooking for him as a way to repay his efforts to find a good job. She knew it wouldn't be easy but appreciated his efforts. On Wednesday, June 10th, she felt embarrassed when Yuta asked about her English lessons, not wanting him to see how hard she tried. Maya's visit that day brought joy and laughter, a rare occurrence for her. They exchanged phone numbers, and she wasn't when surprised Yuta used a landscape as his profile picture. On Thursday, June 11th, Yuta told her that wanting to do something and actually doing it are different, a sentiment she shared. She realized how much she agreed with his thoughts, finding him dangerous because he understood her too well. This brings us to the present, where Yuta tells Saki that she's acting like the type of girl he despises. He feels she's exploiting a situation he never wanted to happen, and he doesn't understand the point if she can't contradict the negative stereotypes about women.
Asamura-kun. Hottoshita. 悪い人ではないというのはあの時に分かっていた。だな、というのも。
After covering her with some clothes, Saki tries to explain her reasons, but Yuta interrupts, saying that what's important isn't him but her. Hearing this makes Saki lower her gaze, and she confesses her feelings. She reveals that she thought her father was a good person, but when his business failed, he became distrustful. Her mother had to work doubly hard to support them, but this only made him more bitter, accusing her of being nothing more than a sex worker who attracted clients with her charms. While Saki understands he was going through a tough time, it doesn't excuse his behavior toward her mother. Reflecting on this, Yuta agrees and shares that they experienced something similar when their mother cheated on their father, causing them to distrust women for a while. Saki is surprised to hear this, especially since Taiki, who is usually cheerful, is involved. She realizes he might also distrust women. Yuta agrees silently, and Saki notes that they share a lot in common, even the broken parts. Yuta concurs but believes that despite being a bit broken, they can do well as brother and sister. Saki remains quiet, still feeling down about her recent actions. Trying to cheer her up, Yuta suggests she can call him Big Brother if she wants, which makes her laugh and feel better. She stands up, thanks him, and asks to make things work but calls him Yuta as usual, ignoring his suggestion. On Saturday, June 13th, Yuta and Saki had dinner alone, having convinced their parents to go out for the day. This was Yuta's idea, showing his thoughtfulness. Saki thinks he shouldn't be called Big Brother for this reason. They spend the day together, and Saki can't stop watching him. During another family breakfast, they bond over food again. Saki thinks that calling him Big Brother would make her too dependent on him, so she apologizes and sticks with Yuta. When she calls him this, she feels something indescribable different from calling him brother. She's never felt this way before, and starts realizing she has feelings for him. Admitting her mind is in turmoil, lately she's had trouble sleeping. Even though she wants to be independent, she feels confused about these new emotions, despite their agreement to be just siblings. This is the end of Days with My Stepsister, episode 3. Thank you so much for staying on this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep you updated with our latest content. See you in the next video.